Well guys, here is a brand new Victoria 2 tutorial, and in this tutorial, I'm going to explain how the budget works. As you're going to be using this a lot in the game, as you need to make money all the time or you're going to go bankrupt. So anyways, here's how the budget works. There are multiple sliders on here which I'm sure are very confusing if you don't know anything about the game yet. So first, I'm going to talk about what makes revenue, and that is two things, well actually three things, but first, income, which is taxes. These sliders affect the rich, poor, and middle class in terms of tax revenue. The slider, when you move it to the left, means you're taxing your pops less. Move it to the right, increase your tax rate on them. So of course, when you have higher tax rates, you make more money, which you need at the very beginning of the game, because I always max tax at the very beginning of the game because you need to make money as possible. But when you have higher taxes, your pops will have less money to buy their goods they need, so they suffer. As you see these bar right here, these pie charts, this determines how well your pops are doing in each group. So for example, red right here means none of their pops are getting their life needs, because there's three groups: life needs, everyday needs, and luxury needs. Life needs are things pops need to buy in order to live. Everyday needs are things they need to buy in order to do their daily routines, and luxury needs are things they need to buy in order to make their life happier. Although that's not a requirement, but life and everyday needs, they're going to go in that order: life, everyday, and luxury. So pops in red chart right here are getting none of their needs. Then yellow are pops that are getting their life needs partially fulfilled. Then it's green, which is this pop group is getting their life needs fulfilled. Then it's blue, which means they're getting their everyday needs met. And finally teal right here, which means they're getting their luxury needs met. You want as little red and yellow as possible. You want as much green, blue, and especially teal, because teal also increases assimilation rate too, which is very important. Get as much green, blue, and teal as possible. Try to get as low red and yellow as possible. So what you want to do, like I said at the very beginning of the game, tax as much as possible, because fuck your pops at the very beginning of the game. You need money. That's more important. You need to build up money in order to buy stuff, in order to build stuff too. So that's very vital. But as the game goes on and you don't need as much money, you have a massive stockpile, you should lower tax, because that way your pops will do better. And also too, if they can't buy their goods, their militancy will go up, which means they'll be more likely to rebel. So if you don't want to deal with rebellions, lower their taxes if you could. And lower the taxes on the rich first if you have capitalism, because they will invest the money into factories and help build up factories. Now, if you're under a planned economy, then it don't matter, because capitalists and I think aristocrats will still exist, but capitalists won't. So you can tax them as much as you want, because it ain't gonna matter at all. But otherwise, tax them the lowest first. That way they can build factories. Then down here, you can't see it. Oh, here we go, right here, gold. In the game, there's some there's some probs in the game that make precious metals, which are gold. I don't know off the top of my head which one does. Let's see, RGO output. It'd probably be very difficult. I know Japan has one, but that's unlockable. So, oh wait, I know. Lahore down here, I think. Don't see it down here. I guess it has to be discovered. I don't know off the top of my head if there's any precious metals at the start of the game, but I know there's a bunch of countries that have them though, so I guess I can't show them unless they're in California, but I think they're hidden. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to find them to show you. But anyways, if you have precious metals, they provide you some money. So if you find precious metals which are gold, you'll make money right here. That's a very useful find too, because gold is very valuable in the game. So like if you're playing Japan, you'll get a gold deposit very soon to the game. And if you want to take over someone in Southeast Asia, go for Lahore Force, because they have gold mines, so you'll make a whole bunch of money there. That'll really help out, especially if you're low on budget. Then it's tariff. Tariffs are tax on imports, and these are very strong. So set this at the same rate, max this out as high as possible at the very beginning of the game, because you make as much money as possible. But later on in the game, you want to lower it, because as you industrialize, it actually costs money eventually too. So, because industrial subsidies, if you subsidize your factories, it'll cost them money. And in some cases, you might save money by actually lowering the tariff rate because you'll then pay less on subsidies. But have tariffs as high as possible at the very beginning of the game because you make as much money as possible. And the same thing applies to higher tariffs means factories don't do as well, but also your pops will be more mad because they can't buy the goods they want. So, and then of course there's diplomatic balance. This is both positive and neutral. If you're paying reparations or subsidies to people, you'll be paying it down here. But if you're making subsidies or reparations, you'll be making money down here too in this little thing right here. It's 0 right now because it's the very beginning of the game and there's no reparations or subsidies. Now, on to expenses. The first one on the list is military spending. This increases the likelihood, this pays officers and soldiers. It'll make pops more likely to promote to officers and soldiers. If they promote to officers, it'll increase your leadership points, which every month gives you an extra bit of points, which will allow you to create a general. So, not very vital at all in the game, but it would be nice to get more research points so you can leadership points so you can make generals. The soldiers, though, that's the important one. If you increase, when you get to 90%, it'll have a massive modifier, so it'll encourage pops to become soldiers, which you need in order to have an army, more brigades too. But this, although it's very important, it's the lower priority usually in the very beginning of the game. So if you need to make money, you usually can lower this. You can encourage soldiers by national focus instead. But later on in the game, you want to get this as high as possible, that way you can have more troops coming in. Next is social spending. Social spend is what you're paying on reforms, as you see right here. As you can see with the British, let me go back right here. As you see, the British are already paying money and social spending on subsidies and pensions and stuff like that. Now, at the very beginning of the game, almost no country pays this. So this is literally nothing you have to worry about. The slider's maxed out, though, for all countries, but you pay nothing at the very beginning of the game. This is literally nothing you have to worry about. So if you lower it, it'll lower the pops getting their needs met, which makes them angry. But like I said, at the very beginning of the game, this is not something you have to worry about. But if you need to make money, you can cut that too. But keep in mind, your pops will be mad. So if your pops will try to keep it up. Then it's administration spending. Administration spending increases the pay for bureaucrats, which will encourage pops to become bureaucrats. And what bureaucrats do, as I mentioned before in my previous tutorial on pops, is they lower the crime rate in provinces so you make more money. They increase the tax and tariff revenue. And if you get 1% of bureaucrats in a colony of your primary culture, you could turn that into a state. So bureaucrats getting a 1% in each state is actually very useful. And in case like Japan, I usually do administration first, max out money, because that'll help out a lot. But most countries, you're going to go with the next one first. Now, as you see, administration efficiency, you want this to be you want this to get to 100%. So that way you'll be more efficient. As you pay, if you pay 0, eventually goes down slowly. But if you keep it max out spending, it'll go up. But this won't be as useful in countries that have that are diverse. Japan, for example, well, I'm not playing Japan right now, but Japan, for example, having 100% is possible, but some other countries not. But try and get to 100% if possible. But it's not the primary focus. Now, here's the big one. Education spending. This increases the pay for clergy, which encourages the pops to become more clergy. Now, what this does is, if you increase education spending, it increases your literacy automatically. It's paused, the game's paused so you don't see it, but the more education spending you spend, the more higher literacy you get, which means you get more research points, which means you can unlock tech quicker or civilize quicker, and pops that get higher literacy promote quicker, so your pops will promote even faster because of higher literacy. This is the most vital of almost every single country. You want to get this to 100% as possible, and in almost all cases, you do not want this to go down at all. Even if you're having a deficit, you want to try to keep this up as long as possible. That's like priority number 1. Now, I'm going to get to next ones. I'm going to get to this one first because these three are all connected. Industrial subsidies. If your country, well, there's no subsidies right now because the British political party is laissez-faire, so you can't pay subsidies. But if you have interventionism, state capitalism, or planned economy, you can subsidize factories, which means you're paying for their expenses if they don't meet their budget needs. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to be paying this a lot because most factories cannot support themselves. But as you go on later into the game, this industrial subsidies thing is going to become very expensive. And I mean really expensive, especially with tariffs too causing a problem as well. So in order to turn that off, you have to either be laissez-faire or you can press this, cancel off subsidies for factories, turn them on, or you have to go individually press them on here. But I can't show you because the British are laissez-faire. But subsidies, if subsidies are turned on, the factory can't support it, they'll start firing craftsmen, and eventually they'll go out of business. So that's the problem when you eventually go to laissez-faire. That's why laissez-faire is very hard to do, but if you get just right, it's very strong. The strongest economic philosophy in the game. So, then finally, national stockpile. There are 3 separate ones, and they're all very vitally important. This one down here is construction. This determines how much you'll be spending into building stuff. So, like, for example, let's say I wanted, well, I can't build a factory, but let's say if I want to build a factory, and I'm building it myself. Once I begin building it, the construction slider will buy as much of the goods I need as possible. Now, this would be very expensive, but it's like a short-term expenditure. Now, if you lower it to 0, you'll be not making anything whatsoever. But what you do is if you say to like smaller amounts, they'll buy much slower, which in some cases is more important that you build stuff slower, that way you won't go into like a massive deficit or something like that, because in a lot of cases some very expensive things are going to really cost you a lot. So, but normally you should keep that 100%, that way you'll build your stuff as quickly as possible. Now these last two are stockpiles for your army and navy. These sliders you need to have on during war because these will determine the strength of your troops. They're very expensive, especially Navy at the very end of the game. They become very, 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 very expensive. But you need to have the sliders on max when you're at war. Navy is not needed unless you need to use your Navy, but if you do, you need to have the sliders on. Otherwise, if you have them on 0 or not high enough, your Army and Navy will not get all their needs met, and therefore they will not fight as well, and therefore very likely to lose battles and die. So keep that up as much as possible. It takes several months for armies and navies to get their supplies fully met. So don't go into a war with low subsidies unless you're absolutely 100% sure you're going to win in a rout. Like if you take on rebels, like very small rebels, you can probably win without supplying troops. Some very small countries you could do without supplying at the very beginning. But if you're taking on a really strong country, you need to supply your troops and your navy if needed months in advance. That way they get fully supplied and all that. Alright. That was a lot of talking as I finally explained all the budgets and all that. So I hope you understand this tutorial. And I hope it can be useful for you in your future games. So see you guys next time.